Two words: Studio Ghibli. As a consumer of pop culture, anime, or just animated films in general, you've probably heard these words floating around the cultural zeitgeist for a while now. Whether you're a fan of whimsical tales with an emphasis on nature, family, and the spiritual side of life, or you're just a chill guy who likes Elden Ring, there's a good chance you know this man, Hayao Miyazaki, Japanese animator, filmmaker, manga artist, co-founder of Studio Ghibli, and the director of today's film of discussion, My Neighbor Totoro. Hi, and welcome to Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones that you don't like and the ones that you do. I'm your host, Dalton, and today we're going to be taking a look at 1988's My Neighbor Totoro. Now, before we get into the film, I should preface, before this viewing, I had never seen a Studio Ghibli film. But seeing as how Studio Ghibli Fest just ended, and My Neighbor Totoro was playing at my local AMC Classic, I figured what better time to go see what everyone's been talking about. I should also mention they were showing the dubbed version of the film, which is what I'll be going off of for the review. So for all you weeaboos out there who are gonna come for me for not watching the most authentic version of the film, back I say, I have body wash and deodorant, two weapons of your demise. First, I'm gonna give you some spoiler-free thoughts about the film. So, what did I think about it? Well, it's an extremely cute movie. It's a tale about two sisters dealing with real-life struggles while also relishing the beauty of childhood and the spiritual side of life. There's some realism and some fantasy. You get the best of both worlds. Plus, the animation looks incredible, especially for it being released in 1988. Honestly, I think it could pass for a modern film. Not only that, but it also features remarkable, heartfelt performances from the entire cast. And last but most certainly not least, the music in the film is goated. There may or may not be this funky little bus in the film, and if there was said bus in the movie, this might be its theme. Not only that, it's such a wholesome film that I had to cleanse my palate with a viewing of Gladiator 2 afterwards. Now, onto the review. Our story begins with Tatsuo and his two daughters Satsuki and Mei moving into a cottage in the Japanese countryside so that they can be closer to their mom, who's recovering from a long-term illness at a nearby hospital. The two girls frolic and explore their new house. Upon seeing it, Satsuki deems it haunted and notices its dilapidated state. But instead of getting upset, the two girls make the most of it and start pushing a rotten support beam back and forth before taking off into their yard and giggling. This scene sets the tone for the adventure, childhood whimsy, and glass half full mentality that lives within this film. Speaking of their yard, there's also this massive camphor tree right beside their house. Continuing to explore their home, they come across what are deemed to be soot gremlins due to their black appearance. According to the internet, they're called Susuwatari. Got it. These beings inhabit their attic and other areas of the home, and Granny, the neighbor boy's grandma, we'll get into him later, tells May that the creatures are spirits of the forest and that only children can see them, as she saw them when she was a little girl. Then we get this scene showcasing some more of that rural Japanese country lifestyle in which Sasuke and May go and fetch a pail of water for their pump. Following this, Kanta, the neighbor boy, shows up with some cakes that Granny made and shoves them in Satsuki's face. He then proceeds to shout, "Your house is haunted!" and then runs away. I love the relationship between Kanta and the two girls. It feels very genuine to how young boys and girls interact. Kanta is a bit timid and prefers not to say much, while Satsuki straight up says, "I hate boys." After this, we get a couple scenes in which we see that the children really must do chores and help the family to survive during this period. Satsuki's gathering wood for the stove, the two girls are helping their father wash clothes, and even Kanta is out in the rice fields when the family goes by on their bicycle. Which reminds me of a story that my father used to tell about my grandfather. He would be out working in the fields, barefoot, and he would see my now neighbor riding by on a bicycle and waving, which naturally pissed him off, as it did Kanta. Anyways, we have a sweet moment where we're introduced to their sick mother, Yasuko, and the next day Satsuki leaves for school. Later, Mei chases after these two rabbit-like creatures that have acquired a bag of acorns. They lead her through this forest tunnel that takes her to the camphor tree. May inevitably loses them but spots another acorn down inside a chasm of the tree. This causes her to fall inside, leading her to, you guessed it, Totoro. He's this large, furry gray creature with ears, whiskers, a tail, and this huge set of teeth. When May finds him, he's taking a slumber, but she keeps trying to wake him up. She then asks him, "Are you a great big soot gremlin?" To which he responds with a massive roar that 4-year-old May believed sounded like Totoro. Later, Tatsuo and Satsuki find May asleep on the ground in the forest, and when they wake her up, she tells them all about Totoro, believing him to be a troll from her storybook, The Three Billy Goats Gruff. The rule of 3 is kind of all over this film. You have Tatsuo, Satsuki, May, and the 3 forest spirits, as well as the reference story. May then tries to take Tatsuo and Satsuki to meet Totoro, but the hole in the tree is no longer there. And Tatsuo explains the forest spirits only allow you to see them when they want you to. That night, Satsuki writes a letter to her mother telling her about the day, but also wishing that she could meet Totoro herself. The next day, Satsuki goes to school, but not long after this scene begins, Granny arrives with May, stating that she wouldn't stop crying unless she was brought to her big sister. This is a sweet moment that further demonstrates how close they are and how adorable their relationship is. During class, while the students are reading, May draws a picture, and one of the kids asks, "May, what are you drawing?" To which she coolly replies, "It's a big Totoro." On their way home, it begins to rain heavily, so Satsuki and May take refuge in this little wooden structure with a statue. May then says to Satsuki,
"I didn't even cry. That's good, huh?"
And if you've ever had a whiny little sister, you know that this dialogue is accurate and hilarious. Then none other than Kanta starts strolling past them with an umbrella. After a second thought, he stops and turns to Satsuki, and just as he did before with the cakes, Then he runs away, just like me after any interaction with a woman. That was a joke. You can laugh. And on the way back, May's like, this umbrella has holes in it. The brutal honesty of children is hilarious in this movie. When they've returned home, Satsuki realizes their dad left his umbrella, and she decides that she's going to return it to him. And of course, May must come along as well. After a while, a bus arrives, but their father doesn't get off, and after a seemingly long time, May falls asleep. Shortly after, through the gap that the umbrella leaves, Satsuki can see large furry legs approaching her. And in this moment, for the first time, she meets her neighbor. Totoro really doesn't do a whole lot in this scene besides give us an iconic poster shot. He shows up, knocks the raindrops out of the tree, something he takes great enjoyment in, and then gifts them a little package before hopping on the strange Cheshire Cat looking bus. Oh boy, I wonder what it could be. Oh, acorns. Thanks, Totoro. You really shouldn't have. Genuinely, you shouldn't have. That night, Satsuki's writing another letter to her mom talking about the day they've had and how they've planted the acorns in the backyard. And then there's this little montage of May squatting in front of the dirt, waiting for the plants to grow, which is absolutely perfect. On a different night, the two girls look out the window to see Totoro and his posse hanging around in the backyard. Satsuki soon realizes that they're performing some sort of ritual around the spot where they planted the acorns. They're just kind of walking circles around the garden and hopping over it. I imagine it's a fun time. Then Satsuki and May go outside to join them, and they all do this fun little dance in unison, resulting in a massive tree appearing in their backyard. Then Totoro pulls a Beyblade out of his pocket and hops on it. Beyblade, Beyblade, let it rip! This allows him and the children to have a Mary Poppins moment as they soar through the sky with an umbrella. The acorn dance up through this moment is probably one of my favorite scenes in the film. The next morning, Satsuki and May go outside to see that the massive tree is gone, although their acorns have sprouted. In the following scene, the two girls are picking vegetables with Granny, and May asks if the fresh corn will help her mother feel better. Granny, of course, tells her that if she ate any of her vegetables that she'd feel better right away. Soon after this, Kanta runs up with a telegram saying to contact the hospital. Thinking the worst, Satsuki and Kanta run to his uncle's house to use the phone, and against Granny's orders, May tries to follow but struggles to keep up. While Satsuki receives the news that her mother isn't doing well, May fends off a goat from taking her corn. When they meet back up, you get probably the most heartbreaking scene in the film, in which Mei is upset their mother won't be coming home when they expect it again. And Satsuki loses her patience, asking her,
"You want her to die, May? Is that what you want?"
Then she proceeds to tell a 4-year-old to stop being a baby and grow up. And this absolutely broke me, considering how close they'd been throughout the rest of the film. As a result, Mei takes off, corn in hand, and heads toward the hospital. Meanwhile, Satsuki, Granny, and the rest of the villagers search for her to no avail. However, when someone finds a little white shoe in the pond, Granny begins to worry. When Satsuki returns, she's able to confirm that the shoe was in fact not Mei's. Nonetheless, this revelation brings them no closer to finding her. Left with no other option, Satsuki has to call in a favor from none other than the man, the myth, the neighbor, Totoro. In the next scene, Satsuki crawls with speed and desperation toward the camphor tree, hoping to find Totoro's lair, and thankfully, she's able to get inside. Satsuki tells Totoro what's going on, and he seemingly understands, roaring in response and summoning his cat taxi. Earlier in the film, you're like, the cat bus is kinda strange and comes out of nowhere, but after a while, you're like, he's kinda chill. But by the third act, you're like, okay, I see why it was introduced. Side note, I was gonna make a joke about the cat bus and call it the wagon, but someone online pointed out that the cat is unneutered. In my version of the film, Mei would look up in the sky as the cat bus is leaving and be like, what are those? And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, they showered with their dad earlier in the film. No, I wanted to forget that part. Now, I think my favorite 2 scenes in the film are, ironically enough, the final 2 scenes in the film. The cat bus reunites Satsuki with Mei, and their conversation goes as follows.
"You're okay. I'm sorry."
It's a precious exchange, and I can't convey enough how much I love their relationship. Because while one or both siblings might crash out from time to time, at the end of the day, you still love each other. Then the cat bus takes them to the hospital where they find their mom in good health, laughing and talking to their dad. The girls watch them from a nearby tree and leave Mei's corn for their mom. After finding the corn, Yasuko tells Tatsuo that she swears she just saw Satsuki and Mei smiling at them from up in the tree. Wow, that was a mouthful. For a moment in the theater, I thought, oh no, her mother's seeing them in the spirit realm. She's gonna die soon. But then the credits roll and you're like, oh, she's fine. So it appears I have nothing left to do but score the film. And I have to say, this isn't a usual watch for me. While I'll occasionally watch anime, it's not usually this family-friendly sort of content. Nonetheless, I think it's a beautiful story with well-written characters and equally as great performances. Satsuki and Mei are played by Dakota and Elle Fanning respectively, so it makes a lot of sense why their sister dynamic seems so authentic. Additionally, I love the themes of nature and the preservation of family. Not only that, but the animation also feels one of a kind with its seamless blend of the second and third dimension. I'm not an animation expert, but it isn't 2D or 3D. It's that beautiful in-between which I love for these types of films. So, all of that being said, I'm gonna give the film an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really solid movie for all ages. The only thing that kinda bummed me out was where the plot ended. Satsuki and Mei wanted their mother to return to health so that she could come home. And some of you might say, but they showed it in the credits. Okay, yeah, the opening and the closing credits are really cute. But at the same time, I think we could have just used one more scene where Yasuko comes home and enjoys the company of her family. Perhaps that's me being a bit nitpicky, but whatever. Watch this film with your family, your grandma, your spouse. Watch it with anyone, because I think there's something that everyone can enjoy. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Studio Cinema Saturday. If you did, be sure to subscribe, like, and let us know you love us in the comment section down below. And if you're looking for more things to watch, be sure to check out our sister shows, Television Tuesday and Buying a Film Its First Drink. Recently on the channel, we've been talking about things like Gladiator 2, Hulk 2003, Red 1, Wicked, Attack on Titan, and most recently, Black Christmas. With all that being said, we hope to see you at the next watch.